This is not about Jeffrey Epstein. If the folks on the other side of the aisle would like to bring a bill about Jeffrey Epstein, we can address that. Do not sully Kayla Hamilton's name or her memory by turning this into a political sideshow. I urge my colleagues to vote in favor of this very well-crafted, important bill. It is critical that we be able to protect people like Kayla Hamilton.
The idea of Jeffrey Epstein, that we could bring it, I just want to let you know that there's a gentleman that sits right behind you. His name is Thomas Massey. He has brought a discharge petition that, you may not have heard about it, he's brought a discharge petition that would release all of the Epstein files. Because I was listening to your speech and I was listening to Van Drew's speech, and it was a lot of words to say, I don't want to release the files.
What you just watched is exactly why moments like this matter. Hey everyone, welcome back to Congress Lens. I'm Audrey, and today we're breaking down one of the most heated exchanges in Congress featuring Harriet Hageman and Jared Moskowitz. In my honest opinion, Harriet Hageman walked into that hearing focused and prepared. While the conversation started drifting toward Jeffrey Epstein, she kept bringing it back to the actual purpose of the bill, which was addressing the tragic murder of Kayla Hamilton and the failures in monitoring unaccompanied minors. This felt less like political drama and more like someone trying to stay on topic. Whether you agree with Harriet Hageman politically or not, she centered her argument on documented findings and a real case with devastating consequences. That matters. We're going to break this all down because once you watch the full exchange, the contrast in approach becomes very clear. If you appreciate clear and balanced breakdowns of what's happening inside Congress, make sure you like this video, subscribe to Congress Lens, and share your thoughts in the comments.
Kayla's mother is watching this hearing. She cannot figure out for the life of her what Jeffrey Epstein has to do with her daughter and this bill. Kayla was murdered in Maryland. Where was the ranking member then? What efforts did he make to ensure that no other senseless murder like this happened? Using the life and death of Kayla Hamilton to score political points against the president is absolutely despicable. I'm going to read from the U.S. Department of Homeland Security Office of Inspector General, the report that was issued on March 25th of this year, entitled, ICE Cannot Effectively Monitor the Location and Status of All Unaccompanied Alien Children After Federal Custody, because that's what the point of this bill is to address. Quote, after meeting with more than 140 individuals from DHS and other federal agencies, we determined U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement cannot effectively monitor the location and status of all unaccompanied alien children once released or transferred from the Department of Homeland Security and the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services custody. From fiscal years 2019 to 2023, ICE transferred more than 448,000 UACs to HHS. Most were released to sponsors. However, more than 31,000 of the 448,000 children release addresses were blank, undeliverable, or missing apartment numbers. ICE also was not always aware of the location for UACs who fled HHS custody. We found that ICE did not effectively oversee UACs subject to removal by not issuing notices to appear to all UACs to generate assignment of immigration court dates by the U.S. Department of Justice. As of January 2025, ICE had not served NTAs on more than 233,000 unaccompanied minors. As of October 2024, ICE reported more than 43,000 UACs served NTAs failed to appear for scheduled court dates. Finally, ICE was not always notified of UAC status and safety unless an allegation or tip was reported. These issues occurred because ICE did not always receive information about UAC's sponsor locations from HHS and other federal agencies. ICE also had limited staffing to monitor USC's cases and did not have a policy for all officers to monitor UAC's cases. Without an ability to monitor the location and status of UACs, ICE is unable to facilitate court appearances and has no assurance UACs are safe from trafficking, exploitation, forced labor, or involvement in criminal activities that may pose a risk to local communities. Kayla Hamilton. Kayla Hamilton. Kayla Hamilton.
Write it down for me.
The reason for what this bill is about, Kayla Hamilton was brutally murdered by Walter Javier Martinez, a UAC who was released to a sponsor, an individual who was responsible for housing and supervising the UAC by HHS before any background checks were completed. Kayla Hamilton was brutally murdered by Walter Javier Martinez, a UAC who was released to a sponsor by HHS before any background checks were completed. It is critically important that we stay on task with the issue that is before us today, and that is addressing the brutal murder of Kayla Hamilton and ensuring that this kind of a tragedy never happens again. This is not about Jeffrey Epstein. If the folks on the other side of the aisle would like to bring a bill about Jeffrey Epstein, we can address that. Do not sully Kayla Hamilton's name or her memory by turning this into a political sideshow. I urge my colleagues to vote in favor of this very well-crafted, important bill. It is critical that we be able to protect people like Kayla Hamilton. With that, I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. All said. The gentlelady from California is recognized.
I'd like to strike the last word, and I'd like to yield my remaining time to Congressman Moskowitz.
Thank you, the gentlelady from California. I have breaking news for the gentlelady from Wyoming. The idea of Jeffrey Epstein, that we could bring it, I just want to let you know that there's a gentleman that sits right behind you. His name is Thomas Massie. He has brought a discharge petition that you may not have heard about it. He's brought a discharge petition that would release all of the Epstein files. Because I was listening to your speech and I was listening to Van Drew's speech, and it was a lot of words to say, I don't want to release the files, right? Like that was a lot of words to say, I don't want to release it.
Would you yield? Very briefly, would you yield very briefly?
When I'm done.
My words were about Kayla Hamilton.
Yeah, no, when I'm done, I'll yield. When I'm done, I'll yield to you. When I'm done. So there's a discharge petition that would release the files. The reason why we talk about it in all these hearings is that we can't believe that you were all for releasing the files until the mothership beamed down the instructions to not release the files, and then all of a sudden it was a hoax, it's not real, Barack Obama, Joe Biden, right? We're gonna send the private attorney to move Ghislaine Maxwell, right? We're gonna do all of these things. We're just very surprised, and obviously Mr. Massie has stuck to his principles, and he's had a couple of others do that as well. Everybody else ran for cover, and so do you want to release the files? And then I'll yield. I mean, it's a yes or no, and then will you sign the Massie petition?
Will you yield?
I will.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I got to yield back to the. I got to yield back. I'm sorry.
I'm not going to yield. I want to take some of my time.
Now let's get into the full reaction. Alright, after watching the entire exchange, here's what really stood out to me. Harriet Hageman stayed locked in on the issue the hearing was supposed to address. She referenced a Department of Homeland Security Office of Inspector General report that outlined serious failures in how ICE monitored unaccompanied alien children after release. She laid out specific numbers. Between 2019 and 2023, over 448,000 unaccompanied minors were transferred. More than 31,000 had incomplete or missing address information. Over 233,000 were not served notices to appear. Tens of thousands failed to show up for court. Those are not small administrative mistakes. Those are system-level breakdowns. Harriet Hageman then connected those findings directly to Kayla Hamilton's murder, stating that the individual responsible had been released before background checks were completed. That is a policy discussion. That is about oversight. Then Jared Moskowitz took the floor and immediately shifted the focus to Jeffrey Epstein. Jared Moskowitz referenced a discharge petition introduced by Thomas Massie to release the Epstein files and pressed Republicans on whether they would support it. Transparency is important. No question about that. But this is where I side with Harriet Hageman. The hearing was about immigration enforcement and protecting communities from administrative failures. Harriet Hageman repeatedly made the point that if members want to debate Epstein files, they can introduce a separate bill and have that debate directly. Instead, the conversation became about party consistency and political positioning. Harriet Hageman did not take the bait. She stayed on the bill. She stayed on the victim. She stayed on the data. And in my view, that shows discipline. Congressional hearings can easily turn into viral moments and sound bites. What I saw here was Harriet Hageman trying to keep the discussion centered on the legislation and the documented gaps in federal oversight. You can absolutely disagree with her policy solutions. That is fair. But in this specific exchange, she remained consistent with the purpose of the hearing. That is my take. Now I want to hear yours. Was Harriet Hageman right to keep the focus strictly on the immigration issue, or was Jared Moskowitz justified in pushing for Epstein transparency during that hearing? Let's talk about it in the comments. I'm Audrey, this is Congress Lens, and I'll see you in the next breakdown.